Hey, I'm writing to tell you just how I really feel. You probably didn't notice, but for the longest time I've always been there for you, and I want you to know what I've done for you. And I hope by me opening up like this, you'll hopefully feel the same way for me, and we can be happy together. Forever. I remember when we were both 13 when you first transferred to my school. Yeah, as soon as you walked in, I thought you were the most beautiful girl in the world, with your tranquil blue eyes and when they crossed mine. Even though you were just glancing over the class, taking in the sea of new faces, I knew I wanted to be with you forever. But I was heartbroken straight away when they paired you off with some other guy to show you around the school. So you didn't notice me much. You were always with your group of friends who were so different than mine. Who am I kidding? I didn't really have any friends. But the one thing that got me through all those years of loneliness was watching you. Admiring everything you did. The way you gracefully went through your day without faults simply left me in awe. Day in, day out. As the years went by, you seemed pretty popular with both the guys and the girls. You were sought after by most of the guys in the school, even the older ones. But you shrugged them off. Girls loved how you looked after yourself. You always had your makeup and hair perfect, which made you admired, but hated at the same time. It's sad, but it's human nature to get jealous, and we're all guilty of this crime. What they ended up doing, however, was just a little bit out of line. I saw they pushed you when the teachers weren't looking. How they would shove you into any nearby object, which more than often was the wall. And when you stumbled into the wall, the teachers would just simply turn and say, "Watch where you're going, dear." Then go about their business, blissfully unaware of what was actually happening. Witnessing it happen every other day burned me up inside. Seeing you have to deal with this torment for just being better than them is painful for me to watch. And I hoped it would die down, but shit, it just got worse. I saw when the bullies would knock your drink over when you least expected it, just because the most popular guy asked you out. I was there when they set your bag on fire in woodshop class because they thought you were condescending them when you tried to help them with their work. I caught a glimpse of that one time when they actually threw you to the ground outside the school gates and kicked you until you cried, simply because you tried to tell the teacher what was going on. And after that incident, they followed you home. Usually they wouldn't do anything but yell and abuse you, but the worst part was that you'd never know when they snap and suddenly attack you when they were just inches away from your back. And it tore me apart to see the girl that I loved so vulnerable. I wanted to fix it. What I knew was that there were three main bullies who were consistent. I knew more, but they seemed to do it out of pure pressure. The main culprit was a narcissistic whore. Beth. She was simply jealous about everything with you. All the things I mentioned that made you great burned her up inside. She used to be the center of attention. My god, did she love it. All the guys wanted to be with her. All the girls wanted to be her. Only difference is that she abused this attention for personal gain. She slept with most of the guys that showered her in gifts or had their mommy and daddy pay for everything. She only hung around with girls who she deemed lower than herself. And she did this so they wouldn't threaten her god complex. But slowly, over the years, you being in the school, she lost her reputation. And by then, all the attention was on you. The second who had a grudge against you was that asshole Chris. He asked you to the school's annual dance in front of his friends and yours, and you simply rejected him like all the others. But what made this instant difference was he ran off crying because you publicly embarrassed him. Not that was not a bad thing, but in school, that meant a lot. He denied liking you and lost all his friends and reputation, so he took his frustrations out on the one who thought had caused it all. You. Last person, Julie. She had it for you bad ever since the guy she liked always talked about how amazing you were, while not really giving a shit of attention to her herself. Even after she performed some, well, let's say desperate deeds for him. During the last week of school, I knew they had something planned for you. So I took it into my own hands to deal with it. Because I love you. I didn't want your last few days of school to be ruined. The first person I convinced not to mess with you anymore was Chris. Now, he was much stronger than me, being into all the school sports. Plus, the steroids meant I would not be able to take him on a simple one-on-one fight. But in the end, that would be his downfall. You see, I knew where he kept his steroids, and it wasn't hard to figure out since our school's security and reputation is so low. There's no need to hide it. I got his locker combination by simply saying, I forgot mine, and the teacher gave me a list of everyone's combinations. That's right. They have no sense of security in this school. I cracked open his locker with ease, leaving no trace of it ever being opened. I found the next shot he was going to use and squirted just a tiny bit out, and pulled the plunger back to where it was, leaving a considerably sized air bubble. I knew Chris was no doctor, nor did he have any clue on how everything worked together. He just injects himself and then trains in the school gym. I bought a pass for the gym and pretended to train, but he eventually came into the gym laughing hysterically with his new quote-unquote friends. Enjoy it while you can. It's not going to last long, said a thought that crept into my head. He went to his locker. Not long after, he came out dressed in his training attire and with a determined look on his face. He was ready to start. It was fine for a while, but eventually, he slowed down. He had a puzzled look on his face as his body just gave up. And eventually, the cardiac arrest settled in. And then he was on the floor. People tried CPR, but with no defibrillator around, not much they could do. I mean, who would expect a heart attack in a place like this? I smiled, and I walked out before the paramedics arrived. It was too late for him. Working on my way up the list, Julie was next. She was jealous of the way every guy liked you. I silently slid through her window one night without her noticing. I knew her parents were out, so she made a noise no one would immediately come to her aid. I pounced on her while she was sleeping and pinned her down. I tied her hands to the bedpost and then her legs. I pulled out several jars from my bag, each one almost black. But upon closer inspection, you could see small movement. You see, these jars, they were full of creepy crawlers that one could typically find at the bottom of one's garden. And trust me, I took my time filling these things up with every insect I could find. You see, I wanted her to understand all that pain you must have felt all the time she was shouting abuse at you, hurting you, making you feel lower than you really were. So, I propped her mouth open with those plastic rings that dentists would use for long procedures. And I poured each jar down her throat. Every time, her screaming was muffled just a little more by the buzzing and scuttling noises of the bugs as they adjusted to their new home. Tears streamed down her face as I repeated how all this was for you. A few jars in, I could feel the bugs in her stomach, which was where I'd been sitting this whole time, but by now she had pretty much passed out from the pain. When this happened, I'd wait. I'd pour water on her face, I'd slap her until she responded. For punishment, I'd take out the ring and pour water down her throat, making her swallow all the insects, causing them to go into a frenzy of panic. Eventually, during the 5th jar, the pain of all the insects burrowing into her internal organs, plus the internal bleeding, caused her to pass away. But not peacefully, of course. And I saved the worst to last. I had something special planned for Bethany. She was by far the absolute worst to you. She made your life a living hell. And this was just unacceptable. No one as perfect as you should ever have the displeasure of knowing these people. So I carefully set the pieces and waited. One day I got a head start. I skipped the last class. No one noticed. Not even my teacher. This shows just how important I was in the school, but by this time I had memorized her route home and I waited in the archway. I knew she was walking past this area every time. I waited and thought about what I was going to do and how it was all for you, darling. Although, I didn't have to think so much because I'd had this planned out for days. When I caught sight of her, I grabbed her and pulled her to the ground, and she was kicking and screaming, but at this point in her journey, no one else was ever around. The archway led to an abandoned derelict church, and I dragged her away from the path and into the building so that no witnesses could intervene or even find her body anytime soon. I did my routine of securing her arms and legs to a post, so I knew there wouldn't be any struggle. After that, I gagged her, because I knew that bitch would make a lot of noise for what I was about to do. I pulled out my knife, making sure she caught sight of its glimmer. I placed the point to her lower leg and smiled as she reacted to the sharp point of the blade. I pushed down slowly, making sure the wound was clean as it slowly slipped into her flesh. And oh, trust me, it took a while, but eventually the knife's handle was touching her skin, and I took my sweet time pulling it out, making sure the wound didn't rupture or anything, because that would have meant her death. And that would have been too easy, much too easy for what she deserved. As soon as the tip of the knife exited her body, I immediately wrapped the split with the bandage, applying enough pressure just to keep the bleeding down to a minimum. Placed the knife up a little higher, doing the same thing. Stared into her eyes. She helplessly watched me do this over and over and over, all over her body. Every stab, I would remark about how you didn't deserve what she did to you. And eventually her whole body was nothing but red bandages, and she was barely conscious as I slipped the final blow to her heart. I can imagine you're screaming about now. In fact, I know you'll be. I'm close enough to hear it. And by you stopping just now, I know you've gotten this far into my letter, so I'll start making my way in. It's pretty easy to get into your house after the first few times. I mean, you probably thought it was your parents who left this note in your room for you in the first place, but no, darling. It was me. Don't be afraid of the noises downstairs. It's only me. Put down the phone. I know by now you've got it in your hand, but I've already cut the phone line, you see. Don't bother calling your parents if you haven't done so already, because I've silenced them as well. You can stop your screaming now. I'm always right outside your door. Unlock it. Now. And soon, it'll be just you and me. Together. Forever. Lots of love. Your secret admirer.